Hi, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to check our brakes all the way around on a 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe. We're just going to do a quick inspection. Don't forget to subscribe, it helps me out big time. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed, and thank you to everybody else who does in the future. It's greatly appreciated. And don't forget to check me out on Instagram at Clara Garage. Let's get started. All right, so I've already kind of started. I inspected the one out of the four wheels. So the reason I'm doing the inspection, usually I'll inspect the brakes when I change from winter tires to summer tires and vice versa. We're almost ready to put summer tires on. We're probably 2 or 3 weeks away. So this is still under warranty, so it has to go to the dealer for the oil changes and all that kind of stuff. And it's a 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe, and it has a little over 110,000 kilometers on it. So when I went for the oil change today, they also did the 112,000 kilometer inspection on it. So I was at work. The wife went with the little one to get the oil change done, and she was sitting in the waiting room, and the mechanics came out shaking their head like there's a lot of stuff seriously wrong with her car, and they told her that it was going to need brakes, and they said alignment too, but it has winter tires on, so if I'm going to get it aligned, I would wait till I had the summer tires on to align it, because it has the factory rims and everything, and that's just the way I would typically do it. But so they came out shaking their head, and they brought the brake pads with them, and they said that it needed brakes all the way around, pads, and rotors. So, and they told her it would only cost $2,000 more to do, and they already had a vehicle ready for her to take home, and the way they were acting, she had the impression that she wasn't going to be able to leave with it because she was going to have no brakes. They strongly misled her. So she ended up calling me, and I know about 8 to 10,000 kilometers ago would have been roughly when I would have put the snow tires on. When I took the summer tires off, I inspected them then, and I knew there was a slim chance that the brakes have completely failed in roughly 4 months, and we'll say 10,000 kilometers. So I told her, don't let them do the work. I wanted to look at it myself, just to see how honest they were being, and so here we are. We're going to inspect each wheel and make sure that the brakes look okay. And this just goes to show that you can't always trust everything that your garage says. Sometimes if you don't like what one garage says, it's worth paying the money to get another garage to inspect it that might be a little more honest. So there's our brake rotor. It looks pretty good actually, considering the mileage and the age. So when you feel it there, other than this little spot here, there's just a very slight groove, but it feels almost brand new. And same with the backside. When you feel on the backside, it feels pretty good too. There's no big ridges or anything. Looks pretty good. The webbing looks half decent all the way around. It's not overly rusted or anything. It looks pretty decent. And then the pads, looking at those, they're not new looking, but they're definitely not wore out to the point where you have to do a complete brake job this instant. But they actually look pretty good as well. So they did put new grease and everything on them today. So I'm not going to pull them all the way out because I can see the depth of pad that's there. And looking at the rotor, I know that they're wearing half decent. So inspecting this side, I don't see any big red flags with the rotor. And the brake pads, I would say, are a little bit less than half-life, but 110,000 kilometers. They're definitely good for at least another 20 to 50,000 before they need to be changed. And with this shape of the rotors, I wouldn't bother changing the rotors. I would put one more set of pads on at least before I would deem these rotors bad. There's still lots of meat on them. I'm not sure what the I'd have to look it up to see what the spec is with the micrometer to see how much they're actually wore, but I can tell just looking at it that they're within reason, and it's definitely not a rush. You gotta change it to day job. So I'm gonna put it back together, and then we'll check the other side. So this is the front passenger side, which would be the front right, because we're in North America. So we're gonna check the driver's side or the front left next, and then we'll check the two backs. So to get the caliper off is just two little bolts with a 14 millimeter head holding it on. So I just did a Google search to find what the torque specs are for those two bolts. And for the front calipers and for the rear calipers, the information I found online said 16 to 23 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to torque to. I'll torque them to around 20 foot-pounds. That's right in the middle. And that should be okay and should do the trick. So I'm going to put this all back together, and then we'll take apart the next side and we'll go from there. Alright, we're going to go through taking the wheel off and then taking the caliper off. That's why I didn't record taking the other side apart, and I should have. So I'm going to record taking this side apart. So first thing I like to do is use my breaker bar to break all these lug nuts free. I'm using a short little extension, and I find a 13/16 fits on the lug nuts really good. My socket set for metric goes from 19 mil to 21 mil, and I find my 21 mil is a little more sloppy than I would like, but I find the 13/16 fits on perfect. So I just like to get them just slightly loose before I jack it up. Alright, now our next step is to get the jack underneath. So I'm going to show you where the lifting point is on the unibody. So we're at the just behind the front wheel, and then we're going underneath, and you can see right here you can see the plastic is notched out around, and you have this seam. So we're going to put the jack right on here, and we're going to jack up right there. Once the jack's firmly underneath, we can jack it up high enough to get the tire off. So that's enough to get the tire off. And when you bring your jack handle back up, make sure it doesn't extend and hit your body and scratch your paint or anything. And same thing when you lower it down. I usually pull the handle away when I lower it down, because depending where your jack is, you could be right underneath your mirror, and you could go to lower it down and knock your mirror right off. So now we're going to take all our lug nuts off. I usually leave the bottom one for last, because if you take that one out and work from the bottom up, the tire wants to lean out, and all the lug nuts, you have to put a little more muscle into your fingers, where this way you don't have to put as much effort in. Now we can pull our wheel right off. So at a quick first glance, this rotor looks excellent. It feels excellent too. And looking in the inspection holes on the back of the caliper, the pads look excellent as well. So our next step is we want to take our caliper off so we can have a really good look at our pads. Even though there's this inspection window you can see really well, we're going to take the caliper right off so we can have a really good look, and we can also take pictures that way too. So on the back of the caliper, there are two bolts that hold it on. They're a 14 millimeter socket, and they're located coming from the back side, one up high and one down low on your slider pins. So right here is our one that we got to take off, and then down on the bottom is our other one, and they're just a 14 millimeter. And they're not a very big bolt. One other thing to note, we never put any jack stands underneath this. We should put a jack stand underneath, but we're not actually laying underneath. We're not even really putting our head in very far. If something were to move, we would be okay, but if you have a jack stand, you should put it under. I should really have one under as well. And now we're going to grab the caliper and we're going to just kind of rock it out and then gently set it up on top of the rotor, making sure we don't overbend our flex line. Alright, so there's our caliper off. I'm going to measure the depth of pad real quick. So taking my measurement, both pads, the remaining brake liner on them is about a 1/4 inch. So that's pretty good for a while. So here's our brake pads. You can see the liner from the rotor to the steel part of the pad. That in between section is your liner, and there's a lot of material there still. It's definitely not a big rush to get to them. The rotor looks pretty good too. It's not overly rusty or anything. The front of the rotor looks pretty nice. Can't complain about that. The back side of the rotor looks pretty good too, considering the age and the mileage. So nothing about this tells me I have to rush and put new rotors and new pads on anytime soon. I'll probably check them once middle of the summer, and then I'll check them again when I put the winter tires back on next year in the fall, unless I have some reason to check and get into it sooner. And I'm going to be putting the summer tires back on in a couple weeks, so I'll have the wheels back off. I can do another quick inspection while I'm there. Alright, so now we're going to put the caliper back on. It's not a bad idea while you're in here to give everything a quick wipe down. I'm going to be undercoating this in the next month and a half. And these look pretty good now, and after I undercoat it, I always clean all the rotors and everything up really well because I always get lots of overspray all over everything. So I always try to give them a really good clean then. So we're going to do a reverse order to get this caliper on. We're going to make sure that the pads are tight on the rotor, and we're just going to slip it in nice, and then roughly line up our holes to get our bolts started. And I'm just going to put a dab of Never Seas on here. And it's also a good idea to pull your slide pins out and clean those up and re-lubricate them. And now we're going to torque our bolts. So I did a Google search, and according to Google, our caliper bolts front and rear are supposed to be torqued between 16 to 23 foot-pounds. So my torque wrench for the smaller stuff is an inch-pound. So to go from foot-pounds to inch-pounds, you just have to multiply your foot-pounds by 12. So I'm going to end up going around 230 inch-pounds, which is right around 17 or 18 foot-pounds. But I'm going to go up to that gradually. I'm going to go halfway and then set my torque wrench a little bit higher and go the rest of the way. So I'm going to torque it first 110 inch-pounds, and then I'm going to go to my 230 inch-pounds, which is roughly 17 foot-pounds. Alright, that's done. So now we can slip our tire back on. And remember, anytime you do any brake work, especially removing a caliper or anything, when you get in the vehicle and fire it up, before you put it in gear, pump the brakes until the brake pedal feels normal, and even then use caution once you put it into gear. Because if the piston in the brake caliper, if it depresses a bit, when you get in, you put your foot on the brake, you put it in gear, but your brakes might not actually be working. Because they might need a couple pumps to get back to where they were, so they give pressure on the brake pads to hold the caliper, or to hold the rotor, I mean. So always make sure you pump your brakes a few times and make sure they feel normal before putting it in gear, and use caution even still to make sure that the car doesn't go into runaway and you bump into your garage door or something else. So when we torque our wheels, we want to, even when we tighten them up, we want to go in a star pattern. So you want to crisscross. You never want to go all the way around because there's a chance that the wheel might not be square on the hub. So you always want to go in a crisscross star pattern. Alright, that's done. Now we're going to go move to the back. I'll get the wheel off and we'll go from there. Alright, we got the left rear wheel off and the left rear caliper off. The caliper is physically a little bit smaller than the front caliper, but it's also the same two 14mm bolts holding it on. So it's the exact same process as the front. And the rotor is also a little bit smaller and doesn't have the webbing in it. But everything looks pretty good here. So I'll give you a quick show. The pads are wore, but there's still life in them for a while, and it's nothing that we're worried about in the immediate future. So there's our rotor. It looks pretty good all the way around. There's no funny grooves or anything in it. It feels pretty nice. There's our pads. So you can see that they're starting to get wore, but they're not crazy wore. And then I had spun the rotor around, and I just looked through the little opening up here to see how that side of the rotor looked, and it looks the exact same as the front. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see with the camera or not, but it looks pretty good as well. And then we're going to measure our pads to compare them to the front, but I think they're pretty good. So the pads are just a little bit less than a quarter inch of the pad left. They're about 30 seconds. So that's still good for quite a while before we're going to be too concerned about it. So now I'm going to throw this side back together, and then we'll go check the last one on the other side, the right rear, and then we'll be done doing this brake inspection. Alright, we're at the last wheel. This rotor looks the worst out of all of them, but it's really not that bad. You can feel just a little tiny mild groove in it on the front side. The back side's good. The pads look not too bad either. So this is what it looks like. So looking at it, it's not too bad. Running your finger on it, it's pretty flat. There's just two little grooves, like there's a little pebble or something that might have got stuck in there for a kilometer or two type of thing, and then spit itself out. The pads look pretty good too. They're about the same as the other side, around 7/32 of material there. The rotor's not overly rusty or anything. It looks pretty good. So overall, I'm content with this. I'm going to throw it back together and we're going to go from there. Well, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I hope you found that helpful for giving your brakes a quick check. When the pads eventually get worn, maybe we'll end up doing a replacing the pads video. So whenever you go to a garage, if the mechanic tells you something that you're not 100% sure if it's actually true or needs to be done, and they're trying to really push it, especially if it's an expensive job, never hesitate to tell the mechanic that you want to go to another garage and get a second opinion. Because if it's a lot of money, you don't want to jump the gun and do something because one mechanic tells you that it needs to be done, and then you find out later on that it wasn't as bad as the mechanic was saying, or you might have been good for another year or two. So in this case, I would say I'm probably good for at least another year or two in brakes, so I'm not going to be too worried about them. I'll check them once in a blue moon, but they're good for a few more years at least at the rate that they're wearing. And putting the snow tires on and off and doing the summer tires on and off, I'm checking them no matter what twice a year just from doing tires. So if I want to check them in between that interval, that's okay too. So that'd be 4 checks a year, which isn't too bad. But they're good for a long time. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps me out big time. Let's try to get to 1,000 subscribers. And don't forget to check me out on Instagram at Claro Garage. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.